Okay, as we had discussed yesterday, we're going to start with a new chapter. What is the name of the new chapter, beta?
Biomolecules.
Biomolecule.
Biomolecules.
Okay, we'll start. We'll try to finish it before Diwali. Hmm? Okay. All are ready? Should we start?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
When you see this word biomolecules, what is the first thing which comes to your mind? What it means actually? What is the first thing you interpret? Break this word bio and molecules. Bio means what, beta? When I say
Living.
From living biodiversity.
yes, bio means living. Everywhere, wherever we use word bio, it means living. So biomolecules, molecules which are found in living organisms. Understood the word biomolecules?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Tell me, what does biomolecules mean?
Molecules found in the living.
Molecules composed of living.
Basically, when we break the word biomolecules, bio means living, and then we have molecules. So molecules which are found in living organisms are what we call as biomolecules. Now, we have so many molecules inside a single cell in living organisms. One single cell, we've got a lot of molecules. And the entire number of molecules in a cell is known as cellular pool. All molecules in a cell, what are they called?
Cellular pool.
Cellular pool. Okay. So when we say cellular pool, it exactly means that all the molecules inside a cell. I told you people to be present in the class today, because if you do not attend the initial sessions of this chapter, you'll not be able to understand the chapter later, beta. But surprisingly, again, some of them are absent. So all molecules in a cell together are known as cellular pool. Molecules are of two types, organic molecules and inorganic molecules. When we say organic molecules, we mean proteins, carbohydrates, fats, amino acids, nucleic acids, and polysaccharides. These are the main category of organic molecules. Organic molecules which are found in living organisms. Proteins, carbohydrates, fats, amino acids, nucleic acids, and polysaccharides. All these things, will they be present in your body?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, because we said they're organic molecules. Similarly, we have some inorganic molecules also, minerals, salt, and water, which are the most important inorganic molecules when we talk about their mineral, salt, and water. 17 minerals are essential for plants, and 24 are essential for animals. This is a general figure. You can just remember this in general. For plants, how many minerals are very essential?
17.
17. And the animals, if we talk about, then how many minerals are essential?
24.
24 minerals are essential. How to find out? Now, next question is how to find out which organic substance is present in any cell, it's living or non-living. How will we find out? See, we'll take any living tissue, we will grind it in trichloroacetic acid. We'll take a living tissue and we're going to grind it. Grind it in which acid?
Trichloroacetic acid.
Yes, it is trichloroacetic acid. Then you'll get a slurry. What is a slurry?
Paste.
If you remember gobar gas plant, you must have done biogas plant in class 10th. So when you mix dung and water, the word we were using was slurry. If you really remember that 10th wala biogas plant, so it was a slurry. Slurry means a paste. So we'll get a slurry, we will filter this slurry and we'll get two fractions. One part is which will be filtered when it's going to come here. It'll filter from this filter paper, it'll come here and dissolve. It'll be soluble in the acid. And the other part which you're getting here on the funnel or the filter is the one which is insoluble, which is not dissolving in the acid. Which acid did I take?
Trichloroacetic acid.
Trichloroacetic acid.
So this is my beaker. I had filled trichloroacetic acid. I got two parts. This is the acid soluble pool, the one which is dissolving in the acid. This is your acid soluble pool. And over here, if you can see on a funnel, this is the acid insoluble pool. Clear, everyone? Whenever we take any living substance, we had taken what? A living tissue, and we had grinded it, and then we prepared a paste by dissolving it in trichloroacetic acid, and then we got two parts beta. One part which dissolves in acid, that is known as the acid soluble pool. And the one which does not dissolve is known as the acid insoluble pool. Keep in mind that this acid insoluble pool are the molecules whose molecular weight is more than 10,000 Daltons. They will not dissolve in acids. Those molecules whose weight is how much?
10,000 Daltons.
10,000 Daltons.
More than 10,000 Daltons. They will all come in the category of acid insoluble pool. And all the molecules whose molecular weight is somewhere between 18 to 1,000. It's written 800
Excuse
over
me,
here.
ma'am.
Yes, Peter.
Ma'am, what you have told yet? I'm late. That's why I don't know.
And now please wait. Whenever we'll revise, then you listen. See,
Okay, ma'am.
if, this acid insoluble pool starts from 18 to 1,000. In some books, you will find it is written 800. In some books, you will find it is written 1,000. It would be better to learn 1,000 beta, because 18 to 1,000 are acid soluble, and more than this, we are going to have more than 10,000 is what? We are going to have the acid insoluble part. What did we take when we started with? What did we take, beta? We took a living tissue. Okay, let me revise from the beginning very quickly for those who have joined late. We said biomolecules, molecules which are found in living organisms. And all molecules in a cell, what are they called?
Cellular pool.
Cellular pool.
Cellular
Very,
pool.
very good. When we talk about molecules, we categorize them into two categories, organic and inorganic. Examples of organic molecules are proteins. Tell me proteins and speak out.
Carbohydrates,
Carbohydrates, fats,
amino
acetic,
acids,
nucleic
Nucleic
acids,
nucleic
acids,
acids, polysaccharides.
polysaccharides. When we say inorganic molecules, three are very important: minerals, salt, and
Salt and H2O.
Water.
mineral salt, and water.
mineral salts and water. Now, how many minerals are essential for plants?
17 minerals.
17,
17 minerals. And how many minerals are essential for animals, bache?
24,
24.
24,
Now we need to find out that if we take something living tissue, then how are we going to separate these particles? We are going to separate these particles. Listen, how are we going to separate? We'll take a living tissue. We will grind it. You know grinding, mortar and pestle. You must have seen in a lab, just by which वो piece लेते हैं किसी substance को. That is called mortar and pestle in a lab. And we are going to dissolve it in which acid?
Trichloroacetic acid.
Trichloroacetic acid.
trichloroacetic acid.
So we will get a thick paste, which is called slurry. Then we will filter this. And when you will filter beta, you will get two parts. One part which will be soluble in the acid. This is known as the acid soluble pool. And one part which is insoluble in the acid, and that is known as acid insoluble pool. What is it called? Acid insoluble pool. So you saw there is a difference in the molecular weight. So on the basis of the difference in the molecular weight, we have two categories of biomolecules. Molecules which have less molecular weight, जो हल्के होते हैं, they are known as microbiomolecules. What are they called, children?
Microbiomolecules.
And those molecules which have more molecular weight, that is more than 10,000, 10,000 and above, they are known as macromolecules. So on the basis of molecular weight, we have got two categories of biomolecules. Ones which are less than 10,000, they are coming in a different category, and the ones which are more than 10,000, they'll be coming in a different category. Micromolecules and what is the other word?
Macrobiomolecules.
Macrobiomolecules.
When I showed you this figure, I
Macrobiomolecules.
told you that there is the acid soluble pool and there is an acid insoluble pool. The part which does not dissolve in trichloroacetic acid, that was known as acid insoluble pool. So if you will check that what all is present in the acid insoluble pool, if you will check that what is not dissolving in acid, you will get what main things? Please see, you will get four things mainly. One is proteins, Next is nucleic acids, that is DNA and RNA. Third is polysaccharides. When I say polysaccharides, they are cellulose, glycogen. These are polysaccharides. And the last one, which you will get in the acid insoluble part, are your lipids, that is your fats. So very quickly, बेटा जो acid में dissolve हो गया वो तो अलग बात हो गई. जो acid में dissolve नहीं हुआ था, what did we call it as?
Acid
Insoluble pool.
Yes, very good. Acid insoluble pool. Let me go back very quickly. एक बार इसको फिर से देख लेते हैं. See this. Just 1 second, beta. This was my tube. This was trichloroacetic acid. ये जो dissolve हो गया ये part. This was acid soluble. ये जो ऊपर collect हो गया filter में funnel में dissolve नहीं होने वाला है. This is my acid insoluble part. So acid insoluble part basically has 4 main things. Let me have the names very quickly. Proteins.
Nucleic acid, polysaccharides, and lipids.
Okay, very good. Now, lipids are a little different. I'll come to lipids at the last. Lipids थोड़ी special होते हैं. I'll tell you why. Lipids क्यों अलग रखते हैं हम इसको. I'll just discuss about the lipid part a little. Come to this now. On the basis of molecular weight, we have already classified the molecules into macromolecules and micromolecules. Means जिनका molecular weight ज़्यादा है, what are we going to call them as?
Macromolecules.
And the ones which have molecular weight less, we are going to call them as micromolecules.
Like
On the basis of acid solubility, if I talk about, then again we have 2 categories, acid insoluble and acid soluble. Which acid did I use?
trichloroacetic acid.
Trichloric acid.
And then we got 2 main categories, macromolecules, micromolecules. I've given you a few examples to remember. Macromolecules means proteins, DNA, RNA, polysaccharides. And micromolecules, matlab the lighter ones are amino acids, monosaccharides, and nucleotides. Here we had polysaccharide, here we have monosaccharide. Here we have proteins, here we have amino acids. Amino acids only combine to form proteins, no? If you know, amino acids combine to form proteins.
yes.
So these smaller ones are micro, and when they become proteins, they become macro. Similarly, single unit is monosaccharide. It is lighter in weight. So many saccharides connect and then we form a polysaccharide. So the weight increases. So 2-3 examples of macromolecules and 2 examples of micromolecules. Tell me very quickly. 2 examples of macromolecules
Proteins and DNA.
Proteins and DNA.
and 2 examples of micromolecules.
Amino acids and
Amino
nucleic
acids
and
and
nucleic
monosaccharides.
So let me very quickly show you that again the categorization that we have done for molecules. Of course, on the weight we have done macro and micro. Then 2 other classifications we have done. What is the basis of classification? Acid solubility. And then we have taken up a few examples. So polysaccharide and monosaccharide. Which one will belong to macro? Which one will belong to micro?
Polysaccharides to
Monosaccharides,
macro.
micro, and polysaccharide to macro.
And micro.
Okay. So we are studying what? We are studying about yes, biomolecules. What does biomolecule mean very quickly?
Molecules present in living organisms.
Yes. And which was the acid we used?
Trichloroacetic acid.
Trichloroacetic acid.
Trichloroacetic acid.
Very good. So we got 2 portions, one which was soluble and the other one which was
Insoluble.
Soluble in acid.
insoluble one. So macromolecules, give me one example very quickly.
Proteins.
Proteins and DNA.
DNA.
Okay, now I'll move further very quickly. I'm taking you to the first category of biomolecules. Till now, we were doing something very general. Now the chapter is going to start. This is carbohydrates. Can anybody tell me why are carbohydrates called carbohydrates? Why only this name was given to carbohydrates? What does the word hydrate mean, beta?
In presence of water, means H2HO.
Very good, very good. What does the word hydrate mean? It means water, isn't it? You've done this word and iska ulta kya hota hai when there is no water?
Dehydrated.
Dehydrated.
Okay, dehydrated. So this word, can you break and guess why do we call them as carbohydrate? Any guesses?
Carbon and hydrogen water.
Carbon and?
Water.
Very good, very good. She's guessed it right. What she's trying to say. See, beta. They are called so because it looks, if you see the ratio of H and O over here, how many H are there?
2.
2.
And how many oxygens are there?
1.
1. That means H2O. Am I right? So
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
this is H2O. So this water is attached to carbon. अगर आप देखोगे तो ऐसे लगेगा, इस रेशियो को अगर आप देखेंगे तो लगेगा that water is attached to carbon. So carbon का hydrate, carbohydrate. That is why this name is given. It looks as if carbon, water is present with what? Water is what? Hydrate. And water is present with carbon. मतलब hydrate is present in carbon. That is why we call them as carbohydrates. See, this is the general ratio of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in carbohydrates. There are 3 elements present in carbohydrates: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. What is the ratio?
1 ratio
1
2
ratio 2 ratio 1.
So when I write the general formula for carbohydrates, it is CnH2nOn. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
H2nOn. See, carbon and oxygen, the number should be same. So here it is 1 and 1. Hydrogen should be double. So this is 1 ratio 2 ratio 1. Now come to the classification of carbohydrates. We can classify carbohydrates on the number of units. If only 1 unit is present, we call it as a monosaccharide. What do we call it as? Monosaccharide. अब ये क्या गड़बड़ हो गया? हम लोग तो कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स की बात कर रहे थे, फिर ये सैकराइड वर्ड कहाँ से आ गया? What does the word saccharide mean? What does saccharide mean, beta? Any idea? Saccharide means sugar. What does the word saccharide mean?
Sugar.
Sugar.
And sugar is
sucrose.
sweet. Very good. And sugar is sweet in taste. So because carbohydrates are sweet in taste, we also call them as saccharides. So what is the other name of carbohydrates?
Saccharides.
Saccharide.
And why are we going to call them saccharides?
Because they are sweet
Because
in
they are
taste.
sweet in taste.
So if I say monocarbohydrate or I say monosaccharide, it means exactly the same. I was telling you about classification of carbohydrates, and then I said the first category is monosaccharides. It has only 1 unit. Carbohydrates can also be called saccharide because the word saccharide actually means sweet tasting substance. What does the word saccharide mean?
Sweet tasting substance.
Sweet
tasting
tasting
substance.
substances.
And carbohydrates, they have a sweet taste. So we also call them as carbohydrates. If there is only 1 unit present, we'll call them as monosaccharide. If there are 2 units present, what will you call them as?
Disaccharide.
Disaccharide.
3 units trisaccharides. But ऐसे हम
Trisaccharide.
normally हम क्या करते हैं बेटा? 3 को try नहीं बोलते हैं, एक range ले लेते हैं.
Polysaccharide.
3 to 7 units. If we have how many units present? 3 to 7 units. We call them as oligosaccharides. So 1 unit is called?
Monosaccharide.
2 units are called?
Disaccharide.
And 3 to 7 units together, we call them what?
Oligosaccharide.
Oligosaccharide.
And if there are many thousands of units are combined, then we're going to call them as polysaccharides. Okay. Now let's have one example of this. Monosaccharide, the best examples are glucose and fructose. Okay. Disaccharide, lactose and sucrose. Oligosaccharides, it's got raffinose. Polysaccharide is cellulose, glycogen. I just told you monosaccharides are single unit, no? Single unit. And then we said polysaccharides, oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharides, let's change the carbon number and see. Supposing beta, your carbon number is 3. Then the sugar is called as triose sugar. What sugar is it called?
Triose sugar.
Triose sugar.
Triose sugar.
And if you have 4 carbon atoms, then the sugar is called
Tetrose.
Tetrose.
If you have 5 carbon atoms, the sugar is
Pentose.
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 very good. And if you've got 6
Hexose.
carbon atoms,
Hexose.
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 and last, if we have 7 carbon atoms, then
Heptose.
Heptose.
heptose. But ratio, I'm going to show you, the ratio is going to remain the same. Let us do the formulas of these sugars. What was the general formula I told you? 1:2:1, you remember?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
So in triose sugar, how many carbons were there?
3.
3.
3 carbons. So what will be the general formula for a triose sugar?
C3H6O3.
C3H6O3.
C3H6O3. In tetrose sugar, how many carbons were there?
4.
4.
So what would be the general formula for tetrose sugar?
C4H8O4.
H8O4.
Similarly, when I say pentose sugar, how many carbon atoms are there?
5.
5
Five.
carbon.
So what will be the general formula for a pentose sugar?
C5H10O5.
O5.
General formula for a hexose sugar?
C6H12O6.
C6H12O6.
And the last one, that is the 7th carbon atom, it's going to be heptose sugar. What is the formula?
C7H14O7.
7.
Very good. So we have named the sugars according to the number of carbon atoms. We started from where? Carbon 3 to carbon 7.
Triose.
Yes, we started from triose. And what is the general formula for these?
CnH2nOn.
CnH2nOn.
Yes. So what is N over here?
Number of carbon.
Number of atoms.
Number of carbon atoms.
Number of atoms. So if I say 1 carbon, then N becomes 1, and then you can simply put the value of N and you can get the formula of any of the sugars. So we have studied about a bit, and these are the examples. I've tried to give you one example. Triose, it's glyceraldehyde. Then erythrose, ribose, glucose, and fructose. See, these are the most common sugars. C6H12O6, glucose. This is hexose sugar. Glucose is which kind of a sugar?
Hexose sugar.
Hexose sugar.
Because if you see how many carbons are there?
6.
6 carbons.
This is the most common form of sugars that we have, glucose and fructose. They are hexose sugars. Now, the monosaccharides are also called as reducing sugars. What are monosaccharides? Very quickly, first tell me, then I'll explain this to you. What are
Which is number of
monosaccharides?
carbon 1.
Sugars with carbon
Yes.
1.
Only one unit is present, so we're going to call it as monosaccharide. They're called reducing sugars. Why they're called reducing sugars? Understand, beta. They have a free aldehyde or a ketone group. They have either of one groups they will have. Either they'll have an aldehyde group. You know CHO is which group?
Aldehyde.
Aldehyde group.
So these monosaccharides will either have an aldehyde or a ketone group, and they can reduce the Cu2 plus ions. Cu2 plus means, what do you call Cu2 plus ions?
Cupric ions.
Cupric.
Cupric ions.
They're cupric ions. They can reduce Cu2 plus ions of Benedict or Fehling solution. Basically, they can reduce Cu2 plus to Cu plus. And what is Cu plus? What do you call Cu plus ions?
Cuprous ions.
Cuprous ions.
That means they can reduce cupric to cuprous, Cu2 plus to Cu plus. Because they can reduce cupric ions to cuprous ions, that is Cu2 plus ions to Cu plus ions, they are also known as reducing sugars. Which category of carbohydrates or saccharides are known as reducing sugars?
Monosaccharide.
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 They are called reducing sugars because they have which two groups? Either they can have these one or the other. Which groups?
Aldehyde or ketonic.
And because of these presence of these groups, whether an aldehyde or a ketone, they become reducing in power. They can reduce the cupric ions into which ions?
Cuprous ions.
Cuprous.
Cuprous. What is the formula of cupric ions?
Cu2 plus.
Cu2
Cu2
plus.
plus.
And cupric reduces to cuprous. What is the formula for cuprous?
Cu plus.
Cu plus. So Cu2 plus is reduced to Cu plus, that is cupric to cuprous. And that is why these kind of sugars, monosaccharides, are known as which sugars, beta?
Reducing sugar.
Reducing sugar.
Reducing agent.
Reducing sugars. I know you're going to find this chapter a little typical in the beginning, but don't worry. We'll revise it 2 times, 3 times, everything so that you're able to understand properly. Chaliye. Now, when I said disaccharides, trisaccharides, that means many units are combined together. So if they're combining together, there must be a bond between them. So the bond between the monosaccharide units is the glycosidic bond. Which kind of a bond is formed between 2 monosaccharide units?
Glycosidic.
Glycosidic bond.
Glycosidic.
bond.
Okay. In monosaccharides, we had how many units?
1 unit.
1.
And in disaccharides, we have how many? How many we have, beta?
2 unit.
2 units. So these 2 units must be combining with each other or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Combine.
Yes,
Yes, it combines. And which kind of a bond will be there?
Glycosidic.
Glycosidic bond.
Glycosidic bond.
What do you know in chemistry if you've done? What do you know about glycosidic bond? Glycosidic bond कब बनता है? Any idea? एक छोटा सा 1 मिनट में बस जल्दी से बता दीजिए. ग्लाइकोसिडिक बॉन्ड किसके बीच में बनता है? No idea? Always remember बेटा, ग्लाइकोसिडिक बॉन्ड अगर बनेगा तो एक मॉलिक्यूल हमेशा कार्बोहाइड्रेट होगा. And the other can be another group, any other group. But one has to be always what?
Carbohydrate.
So when I say glycosidic bond, it is also known as glycosidic linkage. Basically एक तरह का covalent bond है. It is not an ionic bond, it's a covalent bond. It may have what it may be. देखो एक तो कार्बोहाइड्रेट होगा ही होगा और कई बार क्या होता है one carbohydrate to another carbohydrate. Carbohydrate to carbohydrate. Such a bond will be known as which bond?
glycosidic bond.
Glycosidic bond.
See, there are 2 possibilities of glycosidic bond. या तो carbohydrate unit carbohydrate से ही ऐड कर जाए या फिर carbohydrate किसी दूसरे ग्रुप से ऐड करे. But the essential part is कि at least one of them should be carbohydrate. Understood about glycosidic bonds?
Yes, ma'am.
So glycosidic bonds are basically made between, there are 2 possibilities जब glycosidic bond बनता है. First possibility I told you what? Carbohydrate with?
Other group.
Carbohydrate.
Carbohydrate with another carbohydrate. And second possibility is carbohydrate combining with?
And any other group.
Another.
Any other group. It could be OH group, any other group. But carbohydrate to carbohydrate is also possible. So when I give you an example of disaccharide, तो कौन से वाला possibility चल रहा है glycosidic bond में? Carbohydrate with carbohydrate or carbohydrate with other bond?
Carbohydrate with carbohydrate.
Exactly. Alcohol के साथ भी बहुत easily बन जाता है. Carbohydrates and alcohols also. They give you this kind of a bond, glycosidic bond. So what will be the bond between 2 monosaccharide units or 3 monosaccharide units basically?
Glycosidic bond.
Glycosidic bond.
Glycosidic bond. I hope you know glycosidic bond is formed between carbohydrate to carbohydrate or carbohydrate to another group. It could be alcohol or any other group. But remember, one carbohydrate has to be there. Now come to disaccharides. Disaccharides are known as non-reducing sugars because free aldehyde or ketone group is absent in them. They do not contain the aldehyde or ketone group. So they're not able to reduce what? What was monosaccharide reducing?
Sugar.
No.
Cupric ions to
Copper.
cuprous ions.
Yes. Cupric ions to
Cuprous ions.
Cuprous ions.
mono was able to do or di was able to do?
Mono.
Mono was able to do. Monosaccharides were able to do because they had the presence of free which groups?
Aldehyde or ketone
Ketonic
group.
or aldehyde.
Aldehyde or ketone.
And because of the presence of a free aldehyde or ketone group, they could reduce which ions to which ions?
Cupric to
Cupric
cuprous.
Cuprous.
Cupric ions to cuprous.
Yes, cupric to cuprous ions. And that is why monosaccharides are also known as which kind of sugars?
Reducing sugars.
Reducing sugar.
Reducing sugar.
But when we talk about the next category of carbohydrates, that is disaccharides, then disaccharides are called non-reducing sugars. They cannot reduce the cupric to cuprous ions because they do not have what?
Aldehyde or ketone.
Aldehyde or ketone group.
Very good. They do not have aldehydes or ketones group, and that is why they're not able to reduce the sugars. So I have done with the first type of biomolecules, that is carbohydrates. Before I move on to the second kind of biomolecule, that is amino acids, first let me do this very quickly with you once again. Monosaccharides, first category. From here we are starting the main chapter. Why are carbohydrates called carbohydrates?
Because water is combined with carbon.
Yes, it's a hydrated form of carbon. That means hydra group water is present with carbon, so we call them as carbohydrates. I gave you another name for carbohydrates. What was it?
Saccharides.
Hexose.
Saccharides. What does the word saccharide mean?
Sugar or
Sweet
sucrose.
content, sucrose content.
Basically sweet tasting compounds. So all those compounds which taste sweet, carbohydrates are sweet in taste. So we can also call the carbohydrates as saccharides. Then we did about certain kind of saccharides. Basically, we have just done about monosaccharides and disaccharides. Tell me one difference between mono and disaccharide. I need to have at least two differences. Tell me first.
In
Mono-reducing
monosaccharides,
sugars and
Monosaccharides has one unit, whereas
presence of
disaccharides has
ketonic
two
and aldehyde
units.
group.
Very good, very good. And the second one, this child has already told us that one is a reducing sugar and the other is a non-reducing sugar.
non-reducing.
Which one is non-reducing, beta?
Disaccharides.
And why are they called non-reducing sugars?
Because they
Because of
don't contain
absence of
ketone
ketonic
and
and
aldehyde group.
ketone groups.
If they don't have aldehyde and ketone group, they cannot reduce cupric ions to?
Cuprosines.
Cuprous,
Cuprosine.
When I say cupric ions, I mean Cu.
2 plus.
2 plus.
And cuprous is?
Cu plus.
Cu plus.
Cu plus.
You just now told me that in disaccharide we have two units. So if I have two units in disaccharides, then they must be combined together with a bond. What is that bond?
Glycosidic bond.
Glycosidic bond.
Very good. It's a glycosidic bond. Glycosidic bond is formed in two cases: when a carbohydrate unit combines with another,
Carbohydrate or
or it could be any other group. Like in disaccharide, we said one carbohydrate is combining with another carbohydrate. So this kind of a bond was known as which bond?
glycosidic bond.
Glycosidic bond.
It is a glycosidic bond. Then according to the number of carbon atoms, we had divided our sugars. What is a triose sugar? What will be the formula for triose sugar?
C3H6O3.
C3H6O3.
The most common glucose which you have heard about is which kind of a sugar?
Hexose.
Hexose.
What is the general formula for a hexose sugar?
C6H12O6.
Very good. So you remember what are oligosaccharides?
Which contain carbon atom equals to 3 to 7.
Basically 3 to 7 units are present, then we call them as oligosaccharides. So just very quickly give me the formula for heptose sugar.
C7H14O7.
H14O7.
Okay, these are the examples. You can learn them later. And we did about mono ones called reducing sugars and why they are called non-reducing sugars. Now, if you're clear, should I move on to the second kind of biomolecule I have decided to finish today? Should I start with amino acids?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
See, 20 amino acids are required for protein synthesis. We have just heard that why do we need amino acids in our body? Because they have to synthesize proteins. But ऐसा नहीं होता है बेटा. Only 20 amino acids are involved in protein synthesis. Baki normal function के लिए we need 100 more amino acids in our body. They are not involved in protein formation, but they are needed for normal functioning of the body. For example, histamine. Which one am I talking about? Which example of amino acid which is not involved in protein synthesis? Name one amino acid.
Histamine.
Because normally we believe what? We believe that amino acids function is to make what? Only this function is there. What is the main function?
Proteins.
Protein formation.
Synthesis of protein.
Yes. But remember that how many amino acids are involved in protein synthesis only?
Only
20 amino acids.
And we need more about how many amino acids more are needed for normal functioning of the body? They are not involved in protein synthesis at all. How many?
100.
100 amino acids.
And which example I've just given you?
Histamine.
Histamine.
See, I'll tell you why is histamine important. Histamine is a very important part of the immune system of your body. Okay, we had mast cells, histamine. This increases the permeability of your capillaries to white blood cells. Okay, and then it allows them to fight against the pathogens. So you think histamine is important for your body? Immunity power?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
So this is a kind of amino acid, but it is not involved in
Yes,
protein
ma'am.
synthesis. It is not involved in protein synthesis. Only how many amino acids are involved in protein synthesis?
20.
20.
And uske alawa bhi, we need a many number of amino acids for the normal functioning of our body. How many did I number just now?
100.
100.
100.
I just gave you an example of an amino acid which is not involved in protein synthesis, but still हमारी body के लिए बहुत जरूरी है. What was the name of that amino acid?
Histamine.
Histamine.
So it is helping your body in normal metabolism. It is giving you immunity. Okay, let's do this. Amino acids are known as methane derivatives. What are they called? Methane derivatives.
Methane derivative.
Formula for methane?
CH4.
CH4, na? Everybody sure?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, is this methane? This one? The first structure which
Yes,
I'm showing.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm saying that amino acids are methane derivatives. Derivatives मतलब इस हाइड्रोजन की जगह कुछ और लग गया, इसकी जगह कुछ और लग गया, and methane से जो derive हुआ, जो नया बना, that is what we call as a methane derivative. Now let us understand why amino acids are methane derivatives. बेटा घबराना नहीं है, chapter easy है. आप बस मेरे साथ 2-3 बार रिवाइज कर लो, that's it. See, methane का कार्बन बीच में ऐसे ही रखो अपनी जगह पे. See this carbon and this carbon. I have not touched it. I have not touched this hydrogen also. बस ये ऊपर वाला हाइड्रोजन रिप्लेस हो गया है by an amino group NH2. Can you see over here?
Yes,
Which
ma'am.
group?
Yes, ma'am.
So this hydrogen is replaced by an amino group, and there is one